Hey gang, just to let you know, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com and originalmagicart.store. Using the code gets you 10% off orders $10 or more, and you get to help out the channel at the same time. I hope everyone's having a good day so far, or have had a good day, because time zones are a thing. In this game, I am playing Zedruu, and I keep a Plains, Reflecting Pool, Command Tower, Cascade Bluffs, Dack Fayden, Active Authority, and a Plateau. Matt is playing his zombie deck, and he keeps a Rhystic Study, an Extraplanar Lens, 3 Islands, and a Thran Dynamo. Mike is playing Safi, and keeps Plains, a Scattered Groves, a High Market, a Solemn Simulacrum, a Selesnya Signet, and a Spawning Pit. Lastly, Trevor is playing his Atraxa deck, keeping Dovin Baan, Temple of Malady, Opulent Palace, Watery Grave, Solemn Simulacrum, Yavimaya Hollow, and a Mystic Gate. Trevor wins the die roll and starts us off. Trevor plays a tapped Opulent Palace and passes turn. I play a Command Tower and I pass. Matt plays an Island, passing. Mike plays a Temple of Plenty, scrying and keeping the card on top. Trevor plays a Temple of Malady. He scries 1 and keeps it on top as well. I play a Reflecting Pool and I pass my turn. Matt plays an Island and passes. Mike plays a Plains and casts Selesnya Signet. Trevor plays a Mystic Gate, and he pays 3 to cast a Wood Elves. I play a Cascade Bluffs, and then tap out to cast Dack Fayden. I consider stealing Mike's Signet, but ultimately decide to simply uptick Dack, drawing 2 and discarding 2 cards. I discard Decree of Silence and a Plains, and pass to Matt. Matt draws and plays an Island. He casts Rhystic Study, and passes turn. Mike plays a tap Scattered Groves, and drops his Spawning Pit before passing. Trevor plays the Yavimaya Hollow as his land for turn, and casts Solemn Simulacrum. He shortcuts to combat before finding his land, and he swings his Wood Elves at Dack Fayden for 1, and he then passes and goes to find his basic. I play a Plateau for my land for turn, and I pay 4, 1 for the Study tax, to cast Active Authority. I have it exile the Study when it enters the battlefield, and I then uptick Dack. I discard Solemnity and Sunbird's Invocation, passing to Matt. Matt casts Soul Ring in his main phase, and passes to Mike with 4 open mana. Mike plays a Canopy Vista, which sadly comes into play tapped. He then casts his own Solemn Simulacrum, and he goes to find a Plains, and passes to Trevor. Trevor pays 4 in his main phase to cast Dovin Baan, and down takes him to draw a card and gain 2 life. He plays a tapped Arcane Sanctum, and moves to combat. Trevor swings the Wood Elves once more at Dack, who is quickly becoming the multiverse's greatest punching bag in addition to Thief. I play a City of Brass as my land for turn, and I cast Zedruu before upticking Dack. I discard Leyline of Anticipation and Talisman of Progress, and I pass to Matt. Matt plays a zombie in his main phase, and taps her to draw a card with her activated ability. He then plays a Seat of the Synod, which he presumably just drew, and he passes to Mike. Mike plays an Evolving Wilds, and cracks it to go find a basic, passing to Trevor. Trevor untaps and downticks Dovin once more, gaining 2 life and drawing a card. He casts Oath of Nissa, a more restrictive Brainstorm in green, and sadly whiffs. He then casts an Oath of Gideon, gaining 2 core ally tokens, which Mike kindly supplies. Trevor then plays a Watery Grave untapped, taking 2, and passes to me. On my upkeep, I layer my triggers so the Act resolves first, followed by Zedruu. With the Act on the stack, I exile Trevor's Oath of Gideon and pass him the enchantment. I then move to resolve Zedruu's trigger, and she sees the Act on Trevor's side. I draw 1 and gain 1 life from the ability, and then draw for turn. I then lose 1 life from tapping my City of Brass to cast an Azorius Signet, and then tap the Signet to help cast Rule of Law. I then uptick Dack, and I discard Humility and Arcane Denial. Matt plays an Island and taps a zombie to draw a card. He casts a Frantic Search, drawing 2 and discarding 2, and then untapping 3 lands. He passes to Mike. Mike plays a High Market as his land for turn, and he moves to cast a Grand Abolisher. With the Abolisher on the stack, Trevor casts a Pull from Tomorrow, where X is 2. He draws 2 and discards Elspeth Sun's Champion. Matt also has a response, and he casts an Arcane Denial to counter the Abolisher, and Mike passes to Trevor. Matt draws a card, and Mike draws 2 from the delayed trigger on the Arcane Denial, and Trevor uses Dovin's Last Loyalty counter to draw a card and gain 2 life. Moving to combat, Trevor swings Solemn at Dack, who I let take the hit rather than allow Trevor to draw a card if I were to block with Zedruu. Trevor then casts a Stuffy Doll in his second main phase, and he names Mike. At the end of Trevor's turn, I cast Mystical Tutor, and I go and find Mana Drain, putting it on top. With Zedru's trigger on the stack, I activate Zedru's ability to donate Rule of Law to Matt. I then resolve the trigger, drawing 2 cards and gaining 2 life, and then draw for turn. I move to my main phase, taking 1 from City of Brass, and I cast a Humble Defector. I then uptick Dak, drawing 2 and discarding Felwar Stone and Gilded Drake. I then play a Rugged Prairie as my land for turn, and I pass. Matt cycles Desert of the Mindful in his main phase, drawing a card. He then plays Riptide Laboratory as his land for turn, and taps a zombie to draw another card. Matt then casts a Mana Crypt, and he passes turn. Mike draws and casts an Avenger of Zendikar. He asks if it resolves, which it surprisingly does considering he has 3 opponents playing blue. Mike gains 7 plant tokens, and he plays a Forest, which triggers the Avenger's Landfall ability and gives all of his plants a +1/+1 counter. Trevor draws for turn and swings a Solemn at Dak Faden. He pleads with me to block, and I give in, which lets him draw a card when Solemn dies to Zedru. He then taps 6 to hardcast Terminus, and not wanting to lose most of my draw engines, I cast Force of Will, exiling my mana drain and taking 1. Matt responds to this by countering my Force with a Swan Song, and Trevor taps his Stuffy Doll to deal 1 to itself, which in turn deals 1 to Mike. Responding to the spell, Mike sacrifices all of his creatures to the spawning pit, while Matt is kind enough to give me a Swan token, but Laugh-In immediately takes it back since it gets tucked to the bottom of my library. Matt also bounces a zombie back to his hand with his Riptide Lab, and Trevor then plays an Overgrown Tomb, which he has come into play tapped, and he passes. I draw for turn, and I play an Island. I then downtick Dak Faden to borrow Matt's Mana Crypt, which Matt taps in response. I then recast Zedru, and I pass to Matt. Matt plays a Thespian Stage, and we see a zombie hit the field again. Matt then taps his commander to draw a card, and he passes. At the end of Matt's turn, Mike activates his Spawning Pit twice to make 2 spawn tokens. Mike plays a Plains and casts Fecundity in his main phase. Moving to combat, he swings both of his spawn tokens at Dak, one of which I agree to block so that Mike can draw a card. Sadly, my Dak has taken his last hit and retires to my graveyard. For his turn, Trevor plays a tapped Godless Shrine and passes. I resolve my Zedru trigger on my upkeep, drawing 2 and gaining 2 life. I then roll for the Mana Crypt trigger, which has me take 3 when I fail it. I then play a Rainbow Veil and cast Search for Azcanta. At the end of my turn, Matt casts a Venser to bounce Rule of Law back to my hand. Matt then taps the Venser to draw with the zombie's ability, and we start his turn. Matt casts an Extraplanar Lens, exiling 1 of his islands. He taps both of his wizards to draw 2 cards, and I realize I was supposed to donate away the Rainbow Veil, so I give it to Mike. Matt draws his 2, and he passes, and at the end of turn, Mike casts Beast Within to blow up the lens, and Matt tries to spell crumple a Beast Within. Responding to Matt's counter, Mike casts Croson Grip, also targeting the lens, and puts an end to the discussion. With the spells resolving, Matt then bounces Venser back to his hand, and he passes to Mike. Mike pays 6 to cast a Soul of the Harvest, and he passes the Rainbow Veil back to me at the end of his turn. Trevor has some action though, and he casts Epiphany at the Drown Yard, where X is 9. Matt's not really keen on Trevor drawing that many cards, so he rewinds it and untaps 4 of his lands after countering the spell. Trevor moves to cast an Ugin in his main phase, trying to bait out the remainder of Matt's counters, but Matt doesn't seem to mind. Trevor then further tries to tempt Matt by upticking Ugin to deal 3 to a zombie, but once more, Matt simply lets it happen. With nothing else, Trevor passes to me. I roll for the Mana Crypt trigger, and I lose another 3. I then resolve my Search for Azcanta trigger, binning the planes that I would have drawn, and flipping the enchantment to reveal Azcanta, the Sunken Ruin. I then draw 1 and gain 1 life from Zedru's trigger, and draw for turn. I play a Mountain as my land for turn, and Trevor is instantly captivated by the promo search. In my main phase, I move to cast a Replenish, and Matt lets it resolve. With all of my enchantments coming back, I have a soft lock on the board with Solemnity and Decree of Silence. I then pay 4 to cast a Helm of Obedience, and resolve my Sunburn's Invocation trigger, revealing a top 4 and putting Toper Orb onto the field. I then cast Grasp of Fate, and resolve the Sunburst trigger again before it hits the field, and this time keep Rest in Peace. The grass then comes in, and I target my active authority, Mike's Soul of the Harvest, which he sacrifices in response, and Matt's Soul Ring. I then pay 1 to activate the Helm, and target Matt to take him out of the game. At the end of my turn, Mike removes 6 spawn counters to make 3 1/1 tokens, and I give Trevor my Rainbow Veil. Mike draws for turn and passes to Trevor after Trevor says he'll get them out of the lock if Mike doesn't attack Ugin. Trevor downticks Ugin by 8 in his main phase to exile basically my whole board. This does have my active authority come back, and I exile Mike's Spawning Pit with the Enter the Battlefield trigger. Trevor then resolves the Deviling Season and drops a Jace Unraveler of Secrets. He's then able to ultimate Jace, which counters his opponent's first spell of each turn, which is kind of like a copycat of what I was doing. At the end of turn, Trevor gives Mike back the Rainbow Veil, and I start my turn. I play a Sulphur Falls as my land for turn, and I cast Rule of Law to get rid of the counter trigger. I then lose 1 while tapping my City of Brass to cast Approach of the Second Sun, and I gain 7 life, and tuck the Approach to be the 7th card from the top of my library. I then pass to Mike. Mike plays a Sunpetal Grove as his land for turn, he casts an Ashnod's Altar to get rid of Jace's trigger, and he then casts a Court of Calling where X is 3. He realizes midway through that Reclamation Sage won't work, and instead decides to settle on a Quasali Pridemage. Improvising, adapting, and overcoming. Trevor upticks Jace, scrying 1 and bottoming the card, then drawing 1. He then upticks Ugin and targets the Pridemage, and with the ability forcing Mike to use it or lose it, Mike makes the hard choice and blows up my Toper Orb as it's pretty much locking him out of the game. Trevor then moves to cast a Catastrophe after he floats enough to cast Atraxa, and we lose all of our lands, and Trevor then casts his commander. He then plays an island, and he passes turn. I play Gyreach Sanitarium as my land for turn on an otherwise land empty board, and I pass. Mike draws, and he passes. Trevor upticks Jace, scrying 1, bottoming it, and drawing a card. He plays a forest, and he upticks Ugin to kill a spawn token. Moving to combat, Atraxa hits me for 4, and Trevor gains 4, and he passes turn. I draw for turn, and I pass. Mike draws for turn, and passes. Trevor upticks Jace, scrying, bottoming the card, and drawing. He then plays a Temple of Mystery, scrying again. He once more upticks Ugin to kill a spawn, and deals 4 to me with Atraxa. He then passes to me. I draw for turn, and Trevor realizes he hasn't used the Proliferate from Atraxa once since he's cast her, and with nothing else, I pass to Mike. Mike draws and passes. Trevor upticks Jace once more, and resolves an Oath of Jace, drawing 3 and discarding 2. He then upticks Ugin to kill a token, and hits me for 4 once more. Moving to his end step, he proliferates his Planeswalkers and passes to me. I draw for turn, and I cast the Scroll Rack, which gets instantly countered, but hey, at least I did something on my turn. Mike draws, and he passes. Trevor scries 2 with the Oath trigger, bottoming 1 and keeping 1 on top. He upticks Jace, and then uses Ugin's ultimate. With Ugin's ultimate resolving, he's able to basically just unload all the Planeswalkers that he's got in his hand, and I stop him to say that we've all seen enough, and concede the win to him. Game review time. Where to begin? Okay, so there were 3, I'm going to say it again, 3 major errors that I made this game that I can think of that pretty much gave the game away to Trevor. My first issue was using the Grasp of Fate trigger to exile my Active Authority as opposed to Trevor's Ugin. I was so concerned about Active Authority exiling one of my enchantments, I forgot that fundamentally Ugin's going to exile a lot more than just 1. The second mistake was taking Matt out. I was a little bit concerned that Matt and Mike, being combo decks, were going to win, and seeing as this is the second time that I've ever assembled the combo, I kind of overlooked the fact that they were pretty much locked out of the game. And my third and final mistake was not using the Active Authority on Trevor's doubling season once he blew up all of our lands. Yes, I'd lose control of it, but ultimately it's what allowed him to win after he played a bunch of Planeswalkers thanks to Ugin's ultimate. So hopefully you guys aren't too disappointed with my poor plays this game. It was a learning experience, and I can certainly say I'm not going to make that mistake again. I think it also highlighted when mass land destruction is appropriate, since it allowed Trevor to basically win the game, and didn't just stall us out for 600 turns. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/MTGMudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.